Imani Rivers had dreamed about her wedding in the way practical people did. Less about fairy tales, more about details that made everyone feel cared for. A ceremony that started on time, food her grandmother could actually eat. A smooth flow so nobody got lost or confused. A space where her friends felt welcome, not tolerated. That's why she chose the Hawthorne Conservatory. Glass walls, warm light, a courtyard that looked like it belonged in a movie, and a coordinator assigned by the venue who promised, in the first email, that she would handle everything. Her name was Cheryl Voss. Imani met Cheryl for the first time in person on a Thursday afternoon, 3 months before the wedding, during what the venue called the Final Vision Alignment Walkthrough. Imani arrived early with a neatly organised folder, tabs labelled Catering, Timeline, Guests, Accessibility, Contract. She wasn't controlling. She was organised because she'd seen what chaos did to people. She didn't want chaos. Her fiancé, Gavin Holt, arrived a few minutes later carrying coffee and a calm smile that usually made Imani's shoulders drop. Gavin was white, tall, and quietly supportive in a way that wasn't performative. He didn't treat the wedding like Imani's thing. He treated it like their day, their responsibility. "You ready?" he asked, offering her the coffee. Imani nodded. "I just want us to be clear," she said. "Clear means calm later." They walked into the conservatory together. Cheryl Voss was waiting near the main entrance, clipboard in hand, perfectly styled hair, white blazer, and a smile that looked professional from a distance. Up close, it had edges. "Imani," Cheryl said brightly. Then she looked at Gavin and gave him a quick, approving glance that lingered just long enough to be noticeable. "And you must be Gavin." "Great." Imani returned the greeting politely. "Hi, Cheryl. Thanks for meeting us." Cheryl made a small laugh. "Of course," she said. "Let's go through your list. I skimmed the notes you sent." The word skimmed landed wrong, but Imani let it pass. They started walking through the space. Cheryl pointed out obvious things: the ceremony layout, the reception placement, the emergency exits. Then Imani opened her folder and began with the first item she'd flagged weeks ago. "Accessibility," Imani said calmly. "My aunt uses a wheelchair. The ramp route from the entrance to the courtyard needs to be clear. No decorative stands blocking the path. And I'll need 2 chairs removed from the front row so she can sit with family." Cheryl's smile tightened into something like amusement. "We don't usually move the front row," she said. "It ruins symmetry." Imani blinked. "It's a chair adjustment," she said. "And the aisle needs a clear width." Cheryl waved her hand as if Imani were being cute. "We'll see what we can do," she said, tone light. "But the photos matter." Gavin's expression shifted slightly. "The accessibility matters," he said evenly. Cheryl gave him a quick smile, sweet, dismissive. "Totally," she said. Moving on, Imani wrote a note on her pad anyway. "Ramp clearance / front row wheelchair space. Confirm in writing. Next, food. Our catering," Imani said, "includes a vegetarian option and a gluten-free plated option for 12 guests. That's already in the guest count. I also need to confirm no shellfish in the past apps. My cousin has a severe allergy." Cheryl made a soft, exaggerated sigh. "Allergies," she said, like the word itself was inconvenient. "Fine, but gluten-free plating usually costs extra when it becomes special service." "It's included in the catering agreement," Imani said, flipping to the printed email from the caterer with the line highlighted. Cheryl didn't look at the paper. She smiled and said, "We'll see." Imani felt heat rise in her chest. She kept her voice calm. "No," she said. "We don't see, we confirm." Cheryl's eyes narrowed for a beat, then widened back into a friendly expression. "You're very thorough," she said. "That's good." The pause before thorough made it sound like something else. They reached the courtyard where the ceremony would happen. Sunlight filtered through vines and glass panels. It was beautiful, exactly what Imani wanted. She pointed toward the far corner. "We'll have a small memory table there," she said. Photos of family members who passed, 2 candles, battery operated, and a framed note. Cheryl laughed. Not a big laugh, just a small, sharp sound. A memory table, she repeated, amused. That's very trendy. Imani kept her gaze steady. It's not for trend, she said. It's for family. Cheryl's smile didn't soften. Sure, she said, but no open flame, and battery candles look cheap in photos. There'll be soft warm light, Imani said. It's important to me. Cheryl scribbled something on her clipboard with a little flourish. Okay, she said, if you insist. Gavin's jaw tightened. She does, he said. Cheryl glanced at him again with the same quick, approving look, like he was the reasonable one. Perfect, she said. Now, about your other request. Imani's stomach tightened. Which one? She asked. Cheryl flipped a page. The music transition, she said. You wrote something about a drum line? Imani nodded, brightening slightly because this was one of the parts she loved. Yes, she said. A short procession, 2 minutes, not loud, not chaotic. It's meaningful to my family. Cheryl's expression changed, subtle but unmistakable. A faint smile, like she was humouring a child. Oh, Cheryl said, like a performance. Imani's voice stayed calm. Like a cultural element, she corrected. Cheryl tilted her head. We have to consider the venue vibe, she said. The Hawthorne Conservatory is refined. Gavin stared at her. Meaning what? He asked. Cheryl laughed lightly, as if she hadn't implied anything at all. Meaning our clients expect a certain ambience, she said. A drumline could feel disruptive. Imani's hands tightened on her folder. She forced herself to breathe slowly. It's not a surprise, she said. It's scheduled. It's 2 minutes. Cheryl made a little shrug. We'll need to run that by management, she said, and there may be an additional sound management fee. Imani looked at her. A fee for 2 minutes of drums? She asked. Cheryl's smile sharpened. Fees exist for a reason, she said. They keep things under control. Imani didn't miss the words under control. She also didn't miss how Cheryl had said our clients like Imani wasn't one of them. Imani opened her folder and pulled out the contract she'd signed months ago, the thick one with the venue seal on the last page. She didn't wave it like a weapon, she just held it. Cheryl, Imani said, voice steady, before we add any new fees or restrictions, I want to make sure we're aligned with what's already agreed. Cheryl's face flickered, an irritation she quickly masked. The contract is standard, she said lightly. It's mostly venue rules. Imani nodded. Then it should match what you're saying, she replied. Cheryl's eyes narrowed slightly. You know, she said, weddings go smoother when the bride trusts the process. Imani met her gaze. Weddings go smoother when the venue honours the agreement, she said calmly. For the first time, Cheryl's smile actually dropped. She looked at Imani like she was deciding how to handle her. Then she glanced at Gavin as if hoping he would soften Imani's tone. Gavin didn't. Cheryl cleared her throat and said, Let's step into the office. We'll go over the final quote. Inside the small venue office, Cheryl sat behind a desk and pulled up a spreadsheet on her monitor. She angled the screen slightly away, just enough that Imani couldn't read every line clearly. Cheryl began listing charges like she was reading a menu. Ceremony setup fee, reception coordination fee, staffing fee, security deposit adjustment. Then she added a line item that made Imani's eyes narrow. Special accommodation handling, $450, Imani read aloud, leaning forward. Cheryl nodded. Wheelchair seating, allergy plating, special music coordination, she said smoothly. It adds labour. Imani stared at her. Those are basic accommodations, she said, and allergy plating is in the catering agreement. Cheryl shrugged. Everything is labour, she said. If you want a seamless experience, it costs money. Imani's voice stayed calm. Remove that fee, she said. Cheryl blinked. Excuse me? Remove it, Imani repeated, steady and clear. If you believe it's valid, show me where it's authorized in the contract. Cheryl's lips pressed into a line. You can't just demand. Imani opened the contract and turned pages deliberately, not rushed. Her tabs made it easy. She slid it across the desk, open to the section labeled Included Services. Cheryl didn't look down immediately. She looked up at Imani like she was offended by the audacity of being prepared. Imani, Cheryl said, tone sharpened, I'm trying to help you, but if we can't work together, the conservatory can cancel events that become... She paused, choosing a word. Difficult. The threat hung in the air. Imani felt Gavin shift beside her. She placed a hand lightly on his forearm, not to stop him, but to keep the conversation clean. Imani looked directly at Cheryl and spoke slowly, with a calm that came from being done with games. Then we should read the contract, Imani said. Out loud. Right now. Cheryl's eyes widened slightly. That's unnecessary, she said quickly. Imani didn't move her gaze. It's necessary, she replied, because you're adding fees and restrictions that weren't disclosed when I signed, and you just mentioned cancellation. So yes, let's read it aloud. Cheryl's expression tightened into something brittle. She reached for her phone. I'll call management, she said sharply. Imani nodded once. Please do, she said. I want them here for this. Cheryl stood and stepped out of the office, heels clicking fast down the hall. Imani exhaled slowly. Gavin leaned closer. You okay? He asked quietly. Imani nodded, but her voice was low. I'm not letting her make me feel like I'm asking for too much just for wanting my family respected, she said. Gavin's hand tightened gently around hers. You're not asking for too much, he said. Imani looked down at the open contract. Black ink, clean clauses, signatures. The paper didn't care about Cheryl's tone, the paper only cared about what was agreed, and in a moment, when management walked in, that paper was going to speak. The minutes after Cheryl left the office stretched like a held breath. Imani stayed seated with the contract open in front of her, tabs sticking out like tiny flags of preparation. She didn't pace, she didn't rant, she simply waited, because the moment someone tries to intimidate you with vague threats, the best answer is clarity. Gavin Holt sat beside her, one knee bouncing slightly. He leaned in and whispered, If she tries to cancel, we walk and we take our deposit fight to corporate. Imani nodded once. We don't need drama, she said quietly. We need the truth in writing. The door opened again. Cheryl Voss returned with a man in a charcoal suit and a woman in a navy blazer. They both wore the polished look of venue management, smiles that were designed to feel like solutions. The man extended a hand. Hello, he said. I'm Harrison Vale, venue director. The woman nodded. And I'm Celeste Armand, operations manager. Cheryl hovered near the door like she'd brought backup to regain control. Imani stood, polite and calm. She shook Harrison's hand, then Celeste's. Imani Rivers, she said, then gestured to Gavin. This is Gavin. Harrison smiled with professional warmth. Cheryl said there's confusion about additional service fees, he said, taking a seat at the desk. Imani sat back down, sliding the contract slightly forward. Not confusion, she said evenly. Additions, fees that were not disclosed at signing, and restrictions being introduced now. Celeste's eyes flicked to Cheryl briefly. Which fees? She asked. Imani tapped the printed quote Cheryl had pulled up. A special accommodation handling fee, $450, she said. Listed for wheelchair seating, allergy plating, and 2 minutes of scheduled percussion. Harrison's smile stayed in place. Sometimes special requests require extra staffing, he said smoothly. Imani nodded. That's why we have a contract, she replied, so we don't invent charges based on vibes. Cheryl's posture stiffened. That's not fair, she said quickly. It's labor and coordination. Imani looked at her calmly. Then it's either included or it's not, she said. And you implied the venue could cancel the wedding if we were difficult. So yes, I want the contract read aloud. Harrison blinked. Read aloud, he repeated, as if it were an absurd request. Yes, Imani said. Because we're talking about what's allowed, what's included, and what can't be threatened. Celeste's expression sharpened slightly. Cheryl mentioned cancellation? She asked, turning to Cheryl. Cheryl's smile tightened. I said venues have policies, she replied. We can't have clients making impossible demands. Imani's voice stayed level. Wheelchair access and allergies are not impossible demands, she said. Gavin finally spoke, controlled but firm. And the way Cheryl has spoken about our requests, she's mocked them, he said. She laughed at the memory table. She called our cultural music a performance and said it doesn't fit your refined vibe. Harrison's smile faltered at the word refined. Celeste's face shifted into something more serious. Cheryl, Celeste said, did you say that? Cheryl's cheeks reddened. I said we have to consider ambiance, she insisted. This venue has a brand. Imani's eyes stayed steady. Your brand doesn't override our agreement, she said. Harrison cleared his throat, trying to steer back into control. Let's not make this personal, he said. We can adjust some fees and... Imani raised a hand slightly. Not aggressive, just a pause. Before we adjust anything, she said, I want us aligned on what the contract states, because the contract is the only neutral voice in this room. Celeste nodded once. Okay, she said, read the relevant sections. Cheryl looked like she wanted to protest, but Celeste's tone made it clear. This wasn't optional anymore. Imani took a breath and began. She read in a steady voice, not theatrical, just clear enough that no one could pretend they hadn't heard. Included services, Imani read, finger-tracking the lines. Venue provided day of coordination. Guest flow management. Basic ceremony seating adjustments, including accessibility accommodations. Cheryl's posture changed, a small twitch. Imani kept going. Catering package includes plated alternatives for dietary restrictions as provided by final guest count. Celeste leaned forward, eyes on the page now. Imani turned a page. Sound, she read. Client may provide live musicians within decibel limits as specified. Additional sound management fees apply only if amplified equipment exceeds venue threshold. She looked up. We are not using amplified equipment, Imani said. 2 minutes of unamplified percussion within your stated decibel limits. Harrison's mouth tightened. Imani flipped to the section about cancellation, because that was the blade Cheryl had tried to hold above them. Cancellation, Imani read aloud. Venue may cancel only for non-payment, violation of safety laws, or documented breach of venue rules. Venue must provide written notice and opportunity to cure, except in emergency. She placed her hand flat on the paper. So no, Imani said calmly. The venue cannot threaten cancellation because the bride asks for wheelchair space. Silence landed. Celeste's face had gone still in the way of someone doing internal math and not liking the answer. Harrison shifted in his chair. I see, he said slowly, voice quieter now. Imani turned the contract back toward them. Now, she said, we can talk about logistics, but not intimidation, not mockery, and not invented fees. Cheryl's voice snapped, unable to hold it anymore. You're acting like I'm some villain, she said, eyes flashing. I'm trying to keep this event classy. Your requests are... Imani didn't raise her voice. She simply cut in with calm precision. My requests are in the contract, she said. Cheryl's face flushed deeper. The memory table is unnecessary, Cheryl blurted. The drum thing? Sorry, but it's disruptive. People come here for elegant weddings. Gavin's jaw tightened. And you've decided ours isn't elegant, he said flatly. Celeste lifted a hand. Cheryl, she said sharply. Enough. Cheryl turned to Celeste, incredulous. What? Celeste's voice was controlled, but it carried authority. You will stop editorializing clients' choices, she said. Your job is coordination, not judgment. Cheryl opened her mouth again, but Harrison spoke first, voice careful now. Imani, Harrison said, I apologize for the way this meeting has gone. Imani nodded once. Thank you, she said. She didn't smile. She didn't soften it. She just acknowledged it. Harrison continued, We will remove the special accommodation handling fee. It is not authorized by this contract. Dietary plating is included. Accessibility seating is included. Unamplified live percussion within decibel limits is allowed. Imani felt a tightness in her chest loosen slightly. Good, she said. And, Celeste added, eyes on Cheryl now, Cheryl will not be your coordinator moving forward. Cheryl's head snapped up. Excuse me? Celeste didn't blink. You've demonstrated poor judgment, she said, and you created unnecessary conflict by introducing unauthorized fees and using inappropriate language about client requests. Cheryl's voice rose. So I'm being punished because she's... Celeste's tone turned colder. Because you violated policy, she said, and because you harmed the client experience. Harrison nodded toward the door. Cheryl, please give us the room. Cheryl stood there for a second like she couldn't believe the script had flipped. Then she grabbed her clipboard and left, heels sharp against the floor, the door closing behind her with a final click. The office felt different without her, like the temperature dropped back into professionalism. Celeste turned to Imani, voice softer. We'll assign a senior coordinator, she said. Her name is Raina Ko. She's excellent and she'll follow the contract precisely. Imani nodded. That's what I want, she said. No surprises, no shaming. Celeste nodded. Understood. Harrison added, We'll also send you an updated itemized quote today reflecting the removed fee, and a written confirmation that your accessibility plan, dietary plan, memory table, and percussion transition are approved. Imani's shoulders lowered a fraction. Thank you, she said. Gavin squeezed her hand under the desk. Celeste glanced at the contract still open and said, almost gently, You were right to bring this, she said, and right to ask to read it. Most people don't. Imani's voice stayed calm. Most people shouldn't have to, she replied. 2 weeks later, the difference was obvious. Raina Ko was the coordinator Cheryl had never been. Focused, respectful, detailed. She walked Imani through the ramp route and placed small tape markers during setup planning so staff would keep the path clear. She coordinated dietary plates with the caterer directly and printed allergy labels for the kitchen line. She asked about the memory table with a quiet sincerity, not sarcasm. Where would you like it so it feels honoured, not hidden? Raina asked. Imani blinked at the question and felt her throat tighten for a moment. Near the entrance to the courtyard, she said softly. So family sees it? Perfect, Raina said. We'll light it warmly. On the wedding day, everything ran the way Imani had wanted. Smooth, kind, respectful. Her aunt rolled in comfortably to the front row space that had been cleared exactly as planned. Her cousin with the shellfish allergy ate safely. The memory table glowed with soft battery candles, and more than one guest paused there, touched. And when the 2-minute percussion transition happened, short, joyful, controlled, it didn't disrupt anything. It elevated it. It sounded like family. Imani stood at the edge of the courtyard, watching guests smile instead of flinch, and felt something deep in her chest settle. Later that night, after speeches and dancing and laughter, Gavin leaned in and whispered, You know what made today perfect? Imani smiled, tired and happy. What? You didn't let anyone make you feel small, he said. Imani looked across the room and saw Raina quietly directing staff with calm competence. She saw Celeste Armand greeting guests. She didn't see Cheryl Voss anywhere. The ending wasn't just, they removed a fee. The ending was bigger. A bride's needs were respected. A contract meant something. And the people who tried to shame her learned that paper, read aloud, could be louder than mockery.